Today in VOA Studio we will talk about current situation in Ukraine and its relations with the world with Senior Fellow in the Chair of Ukrainian Studies at the University of Toronto, Taras Kuzio. Taras, thank you for coming today. In the light of resetting button with Russia, it seems that Obama administration doesn't pay much attention to Ukraine. How good do you think new U.S. administration understand the Ukrainian reality, and did they have a clear policy toward Ukraine?
I think that the people who work in the U.S. government and in the U.S. bureaucracy in the various departments, such as the State Department and other departments, do have an understanding of Ukraine. I think amongst all the Western countries, I would say that there's the greatest concentration of experts on Ukraine in Washington. So those people remain from the previous administration. Of course, but the question is more the new administration, does it have a strategy towards the region and towards Ukraine? I don't think it has. It's still too early. Usually those take maybe up to a year or so to develop. And in the meantime, we will see if this reset button with Russia will actually work. I'm very pessimistic that it'll work, because I think that for any resetting of any relationship, personal or government, you need both sides to bring something to the table. And Russia at the moment is thinking that only America should bring something to the table.
Do you think that Obama administration clearly sent this message that Russia has to reset as well?
I don't think it sent it strong enough, because I think that Russia seems to have got the impression that the fault for the poor state of relations is all on the side of the Bush administration, and therefore the Obama administration is going to change its relationship to Russia, whereas what I think the Obama administration understands as resetting is both sides reset their relationship, not just the American side. So I don't think that message has got through enough, particularly in view of the fact that Russia has changed tremendously particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, compared to even the first Putin term in office.
In the same time, Russia pay a lot of attention to Ukraine, specifically to, in this current situation, presidential campaign. And Senator Lugar recently actually emphasized that United States and Europe should have a proactive policy and pay more attention to Ukraine right now. Do you agree? And what do you think they should do to have more engaging relations with Ukraine?
Well, I don't think that Russia has just a single focus on the presidential elections. I think the view in Russia, because of the ideology of the regime, because of the lack of alternative information coming to the Russian leadership, is that they seem to be in a state of paranoia about the way Ukraine is going. And so if we're talking about the resetting of American-Russian relations, we should also talk about the potential for resetting Russian-Ukrainian relations. And I don't think we can see much optimism there, because the same problem arises in the Russian-Ukrainian relationship as in the American-Russian. And that is that in the case of Ukraine, Russia thinks all the fault is on the side of Ukraine. And we saw that clearly in President Medvedev's letter to Viktor Yushchenko in August. But the problem isn't all on the side of Ukraine. The problem is probably mutual, but more on the side of Russia. And therefore, Russia's attempt or thinking that through the presidential elections, the election of Yulia Tymoshenko or Viktor Yanukovych, as it seems to be the two main candidates, that through one of those there will be resetting of relations, is actually not going to happen. Because as we saw in 1994, Leonid Kuchma also said, like Viktor Yanukovych today, that he, unlike the other candidate, can deal and knows how to deal with Russia. But still in 1994, it took Boris Yeltsin 3 years to come to Kyiv. And it took Russia 5 years, the whole of Kuchma's first term in office, to recognize Ukraine's border. So Yanukovych is living in a dream world if he thinks that somehow, if he comes to power, things will automatically change back to a golden era. On the question of US-Europe, I think what's important here is to understand from a Ukrainian point of view is that when relations are good between the United States, Canada and Western Europe, and they became very bad under President Bush, when they're now better like today, then that is good for Ukraine's integration into the West. Ukraine's integration into Europe and into NATO will always be more likely if relations are good between North America and Europe. So I think that's good, and that's something that should be built on. But what I don't think the current administration in Ukraine, Viktor Yushchenko, understands, which I think Grigory Nemyria, who would become foreign minister under, say, President Tymoshenko, does understand, is that the main key for deciding Ukraine's future in Europe lies in Berlin, Paris and Brussels. Because all of the other countries are already on the Ukrainian side. They already support Ukraine. Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, Britain, America, and to some degree some southern European countries. So, but those three countries are the doubters. Germany, France and Belgium are the main problem areas for Ukraine. And so yes, the new, it would be good that some attempt to improve relations between Russia and Ukraine did happen, which maybe can be assisted by the new good relationship between US and Russia and between the US and Europe. But at the same time, Ukraine needs to focus its attention on those three countries. What I think the United States is trying to do vis-a-vis Europe is to say that the European Union needs to be more engaged inside Ukraine. And that has to be eventually a potential membership option. But of course, this relates to domestic politics in Ukraine. And of the three main candidates in the elections, the reality is only Tymoshenko has at least pro-European and pro-NATO people in her team.
But she never mentioned NATO in her program.
She never mentioned NATO, neither did Yushchenko 5 years ago. If you look at Yushchenko's program in 2004, his 10 steps and his 14 draft decrees, there's not a mention of, never mind NATO, the European Union. So this is common to all Ukrainian politicians.